Hi everyone, welcome back to discussing Shamed Avasthas. Hopefully you have seen my video, The 7 Faces of Shame, where I examined how the experience of shame feels inside a person and the different flavors that come when that shame is caused by different constellations or avastas, whether it's being Jupiter or Mercury or Mars. We had a look at all of the different ways that planets can feel shamed. And we talked a lot about how positive astrology was and that it could really help someone unpack their avashta to give them insight, to give them knowledge, which would enable a person to harness the potential of a shamed avashta in their chart. But now you've seen the video, you want to know, okay, so what do I actually do? Great, you've come to the right place. We are now going to look at how to unpack these shamed avashtas. So the next steps. The first thing that's essential is accepting reality, that the shamed avashta combination, those energetic forces in someone's chart, will create these damaging experiences in a person's life. So if we can maybe only take one thing from our astrology chart, it is that this event or these events were absolutely supposed to be here or designed to be in the chart. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with the people or the person who inflicted this on you or the thoughts that you had. This is all some kind of learning experience that you're here to have. So a great first step with unpacking the shamed avashta is letting go of blame, of that somebody did something wrong or that I did something wrong, and just realizing, wow, this is actually here in my chart for a reason. Let's find out what that could be. Like, let's be interested. So moving from a blame mentality into an objective observer, just wanting, like a scientist, wanting to know, okay then, well, how did this come about? What are the forces? What are the triggers? Then from that observational space, we want to understand the dynamics, but to do that we're going to analyze the unique nature of this particular shamed avashta. And in the video today I'm going to show you the detail of doing that. So I'm going to show you that as an astrology approach. It doesn't matter whether you use astrology or don't use astrology. It's any approach that is going to help you objectify the elements that are leading into that experience and the experience itself, so that you can examine them without the heat or the intensity of that somatic experience. And this will allow you to create space in yourself and give you some reaction time, so that in between the trigger and your response there becomes more and more space, allowing you to be conscious and aware and awake and to choose what you want to do. And this is what's so powerful about meditation, that meditation builds awareness. It does so many wonderful things, but from an astrology point of view, in terms of remedies or coaching, it is meditation that is going to build your awareness muscle. And the more awareness you have, the more choices you have in how you act. And when we look at the qualities of the individual shamed avashtas, one of the things we're going to look at is how awake the planet is to be able to respond. And this is really where meditation can help. It can make us more awake. So if our planetary status is either asleep or sleepy, meaning we're missing it, meditation is the only thing I know that is going to give a person more awareness than what the recipe of their chart started off with. And as part of this process, we also want to take the opportunity to examine what is the meaning of this Avastha for this chart. So you need to look at the whole chart. You need to see the patterns through the whole chart of what, if this is it's like a teaching syllabus. If this is a syllabus of what's available in this university course that you've signed up for called This Lifetime, where does this Avastha fit in that teaching syllabus, and what is it really trying to teach? Because the Avasthas, the Shamed Avastha particularly, is like a post-it note from the past. This is why we have them in our chart. It is something that we didn't want to miss, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but for those who've watched The Good Place on Netflix, the characters get rebooted, and when they've worked out what's going on in the scenario, they get rebooted and their memories get wiped and they have to start all over again. And they develop this thing of writing a short message and giving it to the android character for her to give back at the start of the new reboot. And that heads them off in the right direction to short circuit and keep the plot going. But for us, this is like our piece of paper from the past, It's something that's so important for our evolutionary development that we've sent this somatic message in the self to highlight. So we won't miss it. We will definitely deal with this dynamic in this lifetime. It's a gift. So let's take the time to understand what that meaning is. What is the purpose of having this constellation in your chart? In order to harness the power of your Avastha, you need to analyze the whole chart and then have a look at all of these specific elements that add color and flavor and texture. They contextualize the Shamed Avastha, and this is where an astrologer has a powerful insight to walk the road with you as you discover how to use this Avastha powerfully. When I work with people, before I knew astrology, we do this, but we're a little bit in the dark. We're picking around at what the person can remember, and we're trying to understand it and go through the scenario and analyze it from that. With astrology, now we have so many extra ways to get down to the detail of what this lesson is really trying to teach. So timing is going to show when this Avastha is most likely to be triggered in the person's experience. Very powerful piece of information. The Shadbala talks about the potency of the planets involved, and that gives us a lot of information. If the perpetrator or teacher planet is very strong and the victim or student planet is very weak, we can see that Shadbala discrepancy, or the other way around. Maybe the teacher is weak and the student is strong. The house placement is going to show us which area of life this will appear in someone's life and be active. The karakas that are affected are the indicators. So it could be that it's going to affect your spouse, it could be it's going to affect your health, it could be it's going to affect your children, your work, your reputation. All of these karakas will help us. The state of the person's ascendant, how strong their their ascendant planet is. The Rahu-Ketu axis will give us a lot of information about what the evolutionary journey is for this person. And that'll be both tailored around the sign that it's in and in the houses. Of course, the prosperity and annihilation of the house itself is going to show how much damage this might really cause. And then we talked about these Baladi and Jagrati Avasthas. The Baladi Avasthas shows how mature the karma is. So whether it's it's a karma that is just at birth and will have some impact but is not powerful enough to overtake the whole person's experience, or whether this karma is actually mature and it's time now for the karma to be expressed, meaning this avastha could be very powerful. And of course, equally, we might see the karma is nearly extinguished. So it gives us a flavor of how strong the experience will be. And the Jagradati avastha will tell us if it is awake and we have a chance of spotting it, or if we're asleep to this karma and it just sneaks up on us every time. This is where I was talking about how powerful meditation can be to give us more awareness power. The yoga score can be helpful as well to look at how much impact it's going to have, and the kashta of all the planets involved, because it's essential that the teaching planet has kashta to inflict this experience, and we can also look at the kashta of even a benefic planet. It's going to show how much internalizing of that kashta they're going to do. Rashi aspects are important to the field that this is taking place in, the qualities of the sign that it's in, the zodiac sign, and the dignity, as well as the dignity in the Vargas, showing us something about how this planet is performing throughout the different harmonics in the person's life. So there's a whole lot of factors that the astrologer can glean from the data that really personalizes and tailors our understanding of this Shamed Avastha in a person's chart. So for example, let's go back to our one of our favorites from the presentation, Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond 007 series. And we remember, you can see right here in Cancer, that this person has a Shamed Avastha. They have Venus being shamed by Mars. And that is happening in their 6th house because their ascendant is over there in Aquarius. And one of the things we notice straight away about the ascendant is that the ascendant lord is debilitated in Aries. You can see Saturn there in Aries. So we know something already about a little bit the qualities that are going on for this person. But imagine we just begin to look at some of these indicators. One of the things that springs to mind when I look at the data for this person is notice that they're experiencing Venus Dasha during their birth and their early years. And I think this is significant in that when we have a shamed experience in those early childhood years, Venus being shamed here, and it's non-verbal, this has a very powerful effect on someone's life, because it happens at a time when we don't have a lot of tools to be able to process it. We might not have a lot of support. We might not really understand what's happening. So it really deeply gets into the psyche. And then the other thing that we notice about the timing is that Mars and Rahu, the other main players in this Shamed Avastha, get to be the Time Lords during the main time of this person's life. So we could say that this is a deep shame that's going to have occurred, maybe non-verbally, quite hidden, and then it's really going to be exposed, experienced during the main adulthood or the young adulthood of this person. Another nuance that we can tell about this experience is that look at the kashta that we have, that Mars has available there. It's a lot of kashta. Out of 60, it's got just a tiny bit over 50 points out of 60. So a lot of kashta to give, which is the power, the engine, that's going to inflict or have the energy to create the intensity of this experience. And just because we're here, we can have a look at the yoga score as well and see that there is 1 point positive there for yoga score. So any Mars yogas that are in this person's chart that are positive, we do have the capacity to have some positive experience there. But if there are yogas in the chart that have negative possibilities, impacts on the life, then this person has 23.3. So a large negative score for negative yogas. And then we can also look at the Shadbala for this person's various planets. And we notice here that we were saying that the ascendant is debilitated there in the third house, and we notice that Saturn here is 5th in Shadbala. So, okay, so it's a little weak compared to the others. Still has more than 100%. But then we go have a look at Mars is the 6th in Shadbala and Venus is the 7th in Shadbala. So we can see that even though that Ascendant Lord is weaker than, it's not the strongest in Shadbala, it's actually stronger than both of the planets creating this Avastha. So that's an important thing to note. And then we also maybe want to look here for to see how Rahu's doing. Rahu is in Cancer, and we can see that the Digbala from the moon is really pretty good. So its directions from the moon, Rahu's getting well, but its directions from its director, everybody's Rahu takes some direction from Saturn, and that's low. So there may be some not listening to Saturn, and Saturn is the Ascendant Lord, not listening to the body or to the life path. Those messages might not be getting through there. But we can also look at the dignities, just pulling some of the data that's available, and we can confirm straight away that yes, Saturn, the Ascendant Lord, is debilitated. But so is Mars, that is inflicting this Avastha, and that makes Mars not at its best. So in some ways we can maybe see that as a good thing, in some ways maybe as a bad thing, but regardless of whether we see it as being a good or bad, we can notice that in the D7, Mars is actually exalted, and in the D10, it's in Mula Trikona. So if we were coaching this person, if we were lucky enough to be coaching this person, might actually be seeing that this Mars, maybe there's something, if we think about the D7, it's around creativity and legacy, what we're creating that we leave behind, and look at that exalted Mars. And then in what we're known for, Mars is also doing well. So, we're wondering if we might be able to push this person towards using this experience of this Avastha to create something that will last well after the person has passed, something creative, and that they will be known for. And of course, we're not lucky enough to coach Ian Fleming, but it certainly seems that although he had this tawdry secret life where there were lots of sexual relationships and lots of violence in those intimate relationships, and there was obviously unresolved issues around relating to women and female sexuality and being comfortable as a man around female sexualities. Obviously there's a whole lot there, but he has actually been able to harness that and create something that really has gone on after he's passed, and it's a whole I don't know, genre or industry, or it's a whole brand all on its own, and it's captured many people's imagination. So this is perhaps how that Mars has been able to teach something, give something that that the person has harnessed the power of. perhaps not in the way that I would, but it's not my life, right? So everybody's got their own journey that they're on. Now, if you like the idea of understanding your own Avastha, but you don't really know what to do, you might want to put together some kind of worksheet for yourself, or reach out to me and I can send this one along to you. I'll put some details in the text of the YouTube video so that you can request one of these if you want one. This is to give you an idea of how integrated and complex the insights of astrology are, that it's really not about having a quick look at someone's chart. It's the gift of someone giving their attention to all of the indicators in your chart and weighing them all up, calibrating them all, just as we did with Ian Fleming there, to look at how, yes, his ascendant debilitated, you can jump to that idea that, oh, well, it's all going to be kibosh, this is a big problem life. And yet you find out that no, the other planets are actually going to be weaker than that, even debilitated planets. So we need to dig deeper. And if we were to do this, we could use a thought process like this, that your first step is that we really need to accept this is a dynamic that is in my chart, and we're moving from that blame perspective to an observer perspective. So tick that if you have been able to do that first step. The second step is to analyze the entire chart. And for this, you can have a look at the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2 from page 380. There's a step-by-step, house by house, question by question. You just go through and you build up a deep picture of the whole chart. So tick that box when you've done that. Then we're moving into this main blue quantification part, where we're going to collate all the data that you took from step 2. The bits that are relevant, we're going to fill out the blue part of this form. So we want to look at the strength and state of the Ascendant Lord, its Shadbala, its dignity, and the relevant Lajatati Avasthas that are happening. We want to, step 4, really clearly articulate which Shamed Avastha we're looking at. So which planet is the teacher in this? Is it the Sun, Mars, or Saturn? So circle that one. Which planet is the student? And write that in there. And then what's your X factor for this Avastha, the Shamed Avastha? Because you need either Rahu or Ketu or the 5th house. So just circle whichever one applies. Then for your teacher planet, we want to go through and find out what is the dignity, what's the Shadbala, particularly in relation to the student planet, what's the yoga score, the Baladi Avastha, the Jagradati Avastha, the dignity in the D9, because it'll show us how the person's going to feel about this planet at the end of the journey, and what is this planet an indicator for. And then repeat that all for the student planet, so that we know everything also about the qualities of this student planet. And then for your X factor, if it's Rahu, go through these questions, 7A. If it's Ketu, go through 7B. If it's the 5th house, go through 7C. So what is the state of the Lord of Rahu or Ketu? What is the Digbala of the director? What is the dignity of Saturn or Mars in the D9? And what is Rahu trying to teach? Or what is Ketu trying to teach? So that's where you want to look at that axis, both the house axis and the sign axis. And if it's Rahu, we want to ask ourselves, how can ineptness lead to shame in this chart? You might want to ponder that and answer it later. If it's Ketu, how can perfectionism lead to shame in this chart? And if it's the 5th house, we want to look at the prosperity annihilation score for the 5th house and the Rashi aspects to the 5th house. So those are, now we've analyzed the teacher, the student, and the X factor. Let's also rope in the house indicators. So if this is happening in somewhere other than the 5th house, you want to go back and do those 7C prosperity and Rashi aspect questions. And then what does this house indicate in terms of areas of life, and what karakas or indicators are there? And then our contemplation question, how can this house foster shame? Thinking of it from the house perspective. From the sign, we want to look at what are the qualities of this sign. All of those things about the feminine, masculine, the Rajasic, Tamasic, everything. You know all of these things. And how can those qualities foster shame? And then finally in 10, step 10, we want to just revisit what is the timing that's going on. So when is this the teacher planet? When is it the Dasha Lord? The student planet, when is it the Dasha Lord? And if there's a node involved, when is the node the Dasha Lord? And then make a note for yourself of what times seem to be the combination of those Dasha Lords. Okay, so we've done that whole blue section of analysis. Let's come and answer these questions that we put on pause, because you've analyzed the whole chart, step 2. You've looked at the unique Avastha in this blue section of the form. Now, holding that all in your mind, go back and answer these questions. How, if it's Rahu, how can ineptness lead to shame? If it's Ketu, how can perfectionism lead to shame? How does the house foster shame? And how do the qualities of the sign foster shame? So let all of those ingredients become clear to you, and on your taste buds, your astrology taste buds, taste those ingredients. Okay, so you're really getting very specific now about the dynamic. Then let's step back in this green section. What could be the purpose of this Shamed Avastha? So what can planet B, the student planet, learn from this experience? And the second question is, what might happen if planet B was not constrained in this way by the Avastha? Because I have often seen in charts with this Shamed Avastha that actually the shaming Avastha is benefiting the person by constraining the natural impulse of that planet. So have a look at both of those. This is where I'll make some more videos about this, about each Shamed Avastha, and where to look for the juicy lessons. What is it that might really be being taught there? But this is the experience for you to do yourself here on the form until those videos are available. And then step 13, again, we're stepping now back out into the white space that we started in. We need to move ourselves or our client onto the front foot in this regard. We need to be empowered with tools and practices that enable us to harness the potential of this Avastha. It's essential that that student planet becomes a willing and empowered participant. It sees the value in this Avastha, and how, even though this is a very somatic, uncomfortable experience, how can I reap the rewards of this? Like, be expectant of learning these lessons. Now, we can also take into account how difficult this might be for the student, given that Baladi Avastha around how mature the karma is, the Jagradati Avastha around how awake it is, and the timing of when these things are going to unfold. And this helps to give the person a realistic expectation of their success. So if you go through this process, either on your own Shamed Avastha or when working with a client Shamed Avastha, you have then at your disposal the data and the synthesis of that data that gives you insights and allows the person or yourself to have power over this Avastha by using knowledge. You will see the pattern more clearly. You will be able to change your reaction. So, if you have any questions left over from this session, if you would like to get a hold of one of those worksheets, come along to my website. If you scroll down this page at the bottom, there's just a generic form where you can leave a request. If you do that, make sure you check your spam folder when I reply, because I won't have written to you before and it might go straight into your spam. Or otherwise you can email me and I'll put that in the YouTube text for you. I hope that this leaves you feeling that there are tools, especially in astrology, for changing our victim experience of the Shamed Avastha into a learning experience. That you remember from the previous video, all those people that we had as examples of Shamed Avastha are incredibly successful people. So this is something that can be used very well, although it is a rough teacher. It's like that SAS boot camp kind of teacher. You just get kidnapped and dumped and you have to work it all out. But this process of the worksheet can give you that empowerment, and I really look forward to hearing from you, to working with you. Don't forget, I'm trying to set up those hubs. If you have a Shamed Avastha, you want to just scroll down on my webpage, you'll see a link to hubs. Let me know which Shamed Avastha you're interested in and we can get a coaching circle going around that. All right, look forward to sharing more with you about Shamed Avasthas in the future. Thank you. Bye.